Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to Adulting 101 Academy. This is the place where you can come, you can learn, really learn things about what it means to be an adult. It doesn't matter if you're 18 years old, 50 years old, there are always areas that we can improve upon and areas we just don't know a lot about. And Adulting 101 is where we all can learn together to grow, to expand, and just develop our skills. Now, adulting is not always the funnest thing, but it is something that we have to do as we get older. And so, once again, I'm here to help, and you guys are here to help me as well. So, my name is Josh, and today we're going to be focused on the idea of interviews. This is something that is a struggle for a lot of people. Public speaking, whether it be in front of one person or three people for a group interview, can be very terrifying and challenging for some people. And so this once again is just going to be a focus on little tips and things you can do to prepare yourself and give yourself the best chance to be successful in an interview. Now, I've actually got previous videos already up on the channel about resume writing and cover letter writing. So if you are looking for help with those, I will link those at the end of the video and probably down in the description below as well if I get around to it. Just to kind of help you guys out with all the different things that are going on. I also have a video playlist that is job search, and this will be included in it as well as resume writing, cover letter writing, and then in the future I'm going to be working on some additional things that are kind of focused on the job search, like using LinkedIn, how to apply online, things like that. But that is coming down the road. This is the third video in that applying for a job type of series. So let's kind of jump into this right once again. It is preparing for an interview, and this is the most important part of the job search because this is going to be the deciding factor between you getting the job and not getting the job. If you do not interview well, the chances of you getting a job are much lower. Now, there are some jobs and some positions that the interview is important, but really they understand that you're nervous and that type of stuff, and they'll kind of overlook a poor interview as long as you still meet their qualifications. But for the most part, the interview is the deciding factor. The cover letter, the resume gets you in the door and they get you to the interview, but it is the interview that gets you the job. So it's important to practice this, important to focus on it. It is a key thing in the job search. So one of the first things I want you to kind of think about and realize is when you're doing an interview, there are things that managers and employers are looking for. They're looking for dependability. They want to know that you're going to be in attendance. You're going to show up for work day in and day out. They want to trust that you're honest and that you have a trustworthiness in yourself to be able to tell them the truth. Those are key things. Honesty and trustworthiness, they may be very similar, very linked, but they're important things. And attendance is a big one. Once again, if you go into an interview talking about how you miss work a lot or how you come and go as you please, that's not going to help you out. They do want a good first impression. They've already seen your cover letter, they've seen your resume, but they haven't met you yet. So make sure that you are professional, that you are courteous when you're in there, telling people thank you, hello, that type of stuff. Impressions are important. The next thing is they want you to highlight your skills. What trainings have you done? What experience do you have? Do you have credentials, your education? They want to hear those things. In your interview, if you can highlight that you're dependable, your attendance, your honesty, that type of stuff, and you can make a good first impression and you're positive and you have the skills they're looking for, your chances of getting the job are very high. Not guaranteed because there are going to be other people who maybe match your abilities, but it does help. So make sure that as you're practicing, as you're preparing for an interview, that you are making sure that your goal is not only make a good first impression, but to be able to highlight your skills and your strengths and talk about who you are in a positive way. Now, one of the first tips I have for a successful interview is take your time. When you are in an interview, a lot of people try and rush. Like they will hear a question and they will instantly try and answer. Now I'm going to tell you guys my background. I have an MBA. I've worked as a hiring manager in the past. So I've actually read resumes, read cover letters. I've hosted interviews. I've hired people. That was my job for years. That's what I did. Also, I was a director of career development at a local college in which I taught these things. These are things that I taught students who were looking for their first job or one of their first jobs. And over again, when we were doing interview type things, whether it be an actual interview for a job or just mock interviews, people would rush. They would go out there as fast as they could, trying to answer questions, acting like the faster they answered them, the more points they got. And that's not how things work. I am more focused on getting good answers than fast answers when I'm doing an interview. When I'm hosting an interview, I want to hear the details. Now, if you sit and pause for 30 seconds and make it uncomfortable, that's too long. But it's okay to stop for a couple seconds, think about it, and then jump into the answer. That's not a bad thing. Once again, you don't want to wait for 10 seconds. I would say 3, maybe 4 seconds is probably the longest. And a lot of times you can kind of extend that if you kind of start the answer, but not necessarily dig into things, kind of just giving a generic start. There's ways to work on it. You can practice it as well. Just like having a regular conversation. You sometimes are making small talk to get into the deeper discussion later on. But once again, take your time. Don't feel like you have to rush. Most interviews, you have an hour to go through things. And if it goes a little longer than an hour, people usually have time set aside for that, just in case. So answer the questions, but don't ramble on at the same time. Don't answer one question in 10 minutes when it could have been a 2-minute answer, that type of thing. So take your time, but also don't just ramble on. The second thing for having a successful interview is research the business you're applying for. Research the job you're looking at. There's a job description out there because it's with the job posting. For 99.9% of the jobs out there have some kind of job description, requirements, that type of stuff. And it's important to research the business you're applying for because there are a lot of businesses that will actually ask you straight up what you know about them. Tell us what you know about our company or our goals, our standards. You got to do the research for that. At the college that I worked at, that was actually one of the questions. How do you align with our goals and our mission statement? You have to know those things. And that it seems like a lot, but if you're looking for a professional job, you've got to be able to give professional answers. Now, if you're going for a basic entry level stocking shelves job, you probably won't have to answer those type of questions for the most part. They still might have some questions like that. So even a lower entry level job, whether it be at a Walmart or Target, you still might have to answer questions about the company itself and your thoughts and direction of the company, that type of stuff. So, but really, especially if you're getting higher into like management level, questions or jobs, you're going to have those questions. Even at a Walmart, at a college, at a accounting firm, at a um, construction company, if you're getting to management level, you're going to have questions focused on, hey, tell us what you know about us and what you think about us. That is important. Next thing for a successful interview, and this is something that drives me nuts, is when people don't dress professional. I don't care if you're going for a job with McDonald's. I don't care if you're going for a job with a Fortune 500 company, dress professional. Now, if you're going for an entry level job, you're a younger individual, does that mean a full suit with a suit jacket and tie? No, it doesn't mean that. I've done interviews where I have my nice slacks on and I have a polo shirt on because it fit the job I was applying for. That's perfectly fine. No problem with that in my mind. It's when people are wearing t-shirts, especially graphic t-shirts with different maybe shows or music or rock bands and jeans with rips and holes. You can't do that. Even if you're going for an entry level job, you still have got to dress at least a step above the job. You've got to go out there and look like you're actually trying for the job. Now, there are situations where maybe you're not going for an actual interview and you just meet someone who is looking for someone and you're just talking with them and maybe you're out at the ball fields or wherever and it's just kind of a out of the blue impromptu discussion that turns kind of into an interview that you can't change what you're wearing at that point. I mean, if you're out at the softball fields and you're talking to someone and you start talking about a job they have open and you're a good fit for it and you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt, you can't change that. That is what it is. But for an actual scheduled interview, you have the ability to wear clothes that are professional. Now, for some interviews, you can wear jeans, but make sure they don't have rips and tears and holes and are clean. You can wear polo shirts, you can do that. For other jobs, you need to have a tie. The higher you go, the more professional you need to look. So think about that as you kind of prepare for an interview and really kind of know what you need to wear. Once again, your clothes need to be clean. That's a big one. Even if you have to go to like Goodwill and buy clothes and go home and wash them and wear those, that's fine. I've actually found clothes at Goodwill that worked perfectly for job interviews and for work attire. The other place to go, I mean, I've gone to Costco and gotten shirts that I wear professionally. So dress professional, that's a key thing for an interview. The next thing that is huge, and this is one of the easiest ways I've found to eliminate a candidate is someone who's not positive, who is negative. So be positive in your interview. This is not a time to vent about your past jobs, managers, coworkers. This is a time to talk about how you are looking to improve and enhance your knowledge and your experience and grow as an individual. This is your chance to be positive. If you are negative about past managers, past jobs, that is not going to reflect good on you in the employer and hiring managers, you know, scoring or however they do it. Being negative is not good. There's been a lot of candidates who I thought would have been a good fit who I have eliminated because they how negative they were in an interview. I don't want to bring someone in who's already negative and worry about all the bad things they're going to think and say about me. I just don't want to deal with that. It's just a hassle I don't want to deal with, so I don't deal with it. I go on to someone else who is more positive. The next thing for interviews is make sure you know your resume. You will get asked questions about your past experience, your education, your volunteer things. That is something that you will get asked about. So make sure you know what's on your resume. Don't go into an interview saying, "Oh, I didn't know I put that on my resume." That's not a good look. Read over your resume, bring your resume with you as well. Make sure you have a couple copies. Now, usually those people who are going to interview you have multiple copies of your resume already. But if you sit down and let's say you're getting interviewed by five people and one of them says, "Oh, I forgot to bring a resume," and your answer to that is, "I have an extra one right here. Would you like it?" That looks really good. That is a very positive thing. It helps you out, makes you look organized and prepared. That is a huge thing right there. So make sure you bring a resume with you. The next thing, be on time. If your interview is at 10 o'clock, I recommend you get there about 9:50. You don't want to get there earlier than that. If you get there too early, it's uncomfortable for those people who are interviewing you because they may have a meeting already or another interview, or they're working on their actual job and it kind of interrupts them and disrupts what they're doing. Plus, if your interview is at 10, they're going to be preparing and getting stuff ready, maybe talking with their group up until about 9:55. But getting there 10 minutes early, it lets you find out where things are, let them know you're there. That's fine. Don't get there earlier than that. Don't get there at 10:05 either. If you are late, there's no way you can talk about how you're accountable and that you are trustworthy because you're already late to the interview. So be there on time, be there a few minutes early. Like I said, 10 minutes early is pretty good. 5 minutes early works just fine. I mean, I've had people come in 2 or 3 minutes before the interview. And that works out great. It's not a negative to me. As long as they know where they're going and they find where they need to be. I have had people, when I was working at the college, there's multiple buildings who've gone to the wrong building. And people would call down, let us know, hey, your person is here, but they're at the wrong building. They're coming down. And for a lot of those, they did come early. They came 15, 10 minutes early. So when we got that call, we knew, hey, they'll still make it here on time. That's fine. Not a big deal. But I've also had people that showed up at 10 o'clock for a 10 o'clock appointment and they were at the wrong building. So we got the call at 10:01 saying they're here, but they're at the wrong building. It was kind of a frustrating thing for us. So get there early enough to find where you need to be, but don't be there too early necessarily. Next thing is make sure you're listening to the questions that are asked of you. And even if you need to take some notes to kind of help you stay focused, I know a lot of times there'll be questions that have 2 or 3 parts to them. And if you want to write down, hey, the question was this, just kind of write down a key word that reminds you what the questions were. So you don't have to go back and, say, oh man, I totally forgot what the question was. Now, once again, if you're talking and you're answering a question and there is 3 parts, you can stop and say, hey, what was the second and third part of this question? So I make sure I answer those. That's okay. That's actually not a bad thing. I don't mind that. I think people who are interviewing don't mind that either for the most part. Unless you do it with every question. If I ask you, tell me about yourself, and a minute later you're like, what was the question again? That gets a little frustrating. But if the question has multiple parts to it, you can write down notes, so bring a notepad with you. But also don't feel ashamed to say, hey, I know what the first part was. Can you remind me what the second part of that question was? That works well too. That's fine. Do make sure you have good body language. This is your opportunity to sit up, to make sure that you are making good eye contact with people. If you are someone who, as you talk, you use your hands and you move your hands a lot, that's okay. That's not a bad thing. Don't feel like you have to put your hands in your lap and not move them, because that can make things really uncomfortable and awkward for everybody. Because if you are not moving and you are perfectly still and refusing to let your hands move and you're trying to talk without turning your head, you're not you're not seeming natural. You're not flowing with the moment, not having a conversation. So if you use your hands to talk, use your hands to talk. I'm one of those people. I tend to use my hands to talk. I'm not the most expressive with my hands, but I do that. I do, reach out at times and point and things like that. So use your hands, be aware of what you're doing. Don't do too much, but be natural. It is a interview, but a good interview is more like a conversation than anything. The next thing is practice. Practice, 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 practice. There are dozens and hundreds and maybe even thousands of websites that give you interview questions you can print off or pull up on your computer and practice. Find ones that you think kind of relate to the job you're applying for and answer those. And there's a lot of questions that are asked at every interview. Hey, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your strengths. Tell us about your weaknesses. Do you have acknowledging computers? Do you have experience this? Take the time to look at questions that you know are probably going to be asked and practice those. If nothing else, if the question doesn't get asked in an interview, you can still use your answers for other questions, for other things to help you move forward and just become more accustomed with talking about yourself in a professional manner. Now, one of the things that I recommend you do is create an elevator speech. Now, first of all, this is a great way to practice. Taking 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, I say 3 minutes, but really it can go up to about 5 minutes to sit and talk about yourself. This is where you would practice introducing yourself. This is where you would talk about your career goals, your skills, your education, your interest in future employment. And this is important. This is not only a way to practice and get yourself used to talking about yourself and who you are and what you bring to the table, but it also is a key thing that you can use at job fairs. A 3 minute elevator speech that you have practiced and you know how to do is a great first impression at a job fair because you are actually going to be talking to hiring managers, the HR professionals. That is who is at most job fairs. When you go from table to table, you will be meeting with people who actually do the interviews, who actually do the evaluations and the decision making for hiring individuals. So if you can go in and give a solid 3 minute elevator speech about yourself, introducing yourself and talking about your career, your skills, your education, that's a great first impression. And when you hand them your resume for a job, they will write down notes about who you were and what they remember, and it'll be positive for them. So practice this. I recommend that you record yourself giving an elevator speech and put it on YouTube, or even just put it on your computer and just watch it. See what you do. Do you start looking up? Do you start looking down? Do you start covering your mouth when you're talking? Those things are not good. You need to practice not doing those things, but also kind of realize how much your hands move. Realize how many times you say, the more you practice, the less you'll say things like, or like or things like that. You're not going to have that stutter or that delay. You're going to be more focused and able to talk through situations. So practice, record yourself, critique yourself. I hate listening to myself. I hate watching videos of myself. I don't even like looking at pictures of myself. But this is one of those things where you have to overcome that uncomfortable feeling and just do it because it's what you have to do to improve. It's what you have to do to get that elevator speech, that skill and experience of doing an interview at a full length. So learn the elevator speech, practice it, make it perfect. You can even write it out like a script initially, but don't read it like a script. Don't even speak it like a script. Make it more of a conversation, but know what you're talking about. So writing it out can be helpful. The next thing I want you guys to kind of be aware of, and this is something that is kind of new for me. I've only heard of this recently. I'm sure businesses have done this in the past, but it's one-way interviews. And this is where they will give you a question or a couple of questions, and you will actually record a video of you answering each question. A lot of times they'll have a time limit. You have to be at least 1 minute, but no longer than 5 minutes for your answer. And sometimes you'll get three opportunities to record it. So you'll go on there, you'll hit record. You can do the first one. If you made a mistake, you didn't like it, you can do it a second time and a third time, but you have to keep the third one normally. So the good thing about these is you usually see the questions ahead of time and you can practice before you hit record. So you know what the question is and you can write down thoughts or figure out what part of your experience and education match up with it and write something out, maybe do a quick little outline. But this is something that is being used by more businesses because it's an easy way to get information from a candidate quickly without having to block out a full hour or 2 hours for an interview. You can watch a candidate record three videos, each one 4 minutes long. 12 minutes, you can go through the whole thing, get a good idea of what the person is able to do, their ability to speak, communicate, and interact. So this is something for you as a job seeker to practice and prepare for. Once again, for a one-way interview, they're going to have the questions posted. As you usually get an email, and when you go to the site or whatever they do to record, it'll say first question is, and then you can sit and practice it and then you record it. And then the next one will say the second question is, you can get that one ready to go. So practice those things and use those as preparation for the full interview as well. But once again, these interviews are what get you the job. This is what gets you either to a second interview or get you to a job offer. So make sure you're practicing. Make sure you are having others help you. It's okay to have someone else ask you questions and then tell you, hey, this is what you did right. This is what I liked, what I didn't like. Go talk to other people and have them help you prepare for an interview. So, guys, hopefully this helped you out. Hopefully this gave you some thoughts on how to improve and how to work on things yourself for interviews. Like I mentioned before, there is the resume video, the cover letter video already up on YouTube on the channel. So take advantage of those. Watch those if you have any questions about that. And once again, I hope this helped you kind of focus in on ways you can improve your interview skills, ways you can prepare for an interview, and just help you get that job down the road. So, guys, I'm Josh. This is Adulting 101 Academy. Thank you for taking the time to listen. And until next time, have a good day.